everyone, and welcome. This is our live stream about Cthulhu Dark Providence. My name is Elena. I am joined today by designer Travis Jens. How are you, Travis? This is our live stream about
Hi.
Cthulhu Dark Providence. My name is Elena. I am joined today by designer Travis. You are How are you, Travis? A little behind, and I can listen to myself.
That's a little
My name
strange.
is Elena. I am joined today by designer.
Can you hear me?
Are you a little behind, and I can listen to myself?
That's a little strange.
Elena. I am joined today by designer.
Can you hear me?
Are you a little behind, and I can listen to myself?
That's a little strange.
Elena. I am joined today by designer.
Can you hear me?
There's something off. A little behind, and I can listen. We'll be right back. Okay, let's see if this time around things will go smoothly or if the insanity will continue to rise.
Oh no.
I can't hear myself. Can you guys hear an echo? I think
I hear no
not.
echo.
Yeah, I think we won this time. That's good. So, starting over, my name is Elena. Welcome to our Dark Providence live stream, and this is designer Travis Jens. How are you, Travis? Can you introduce yourself?
Hi. Well, you just did introduce me, but I'll introduce myself again. How you doing? I'm Travis. Nice to see you and nice to see everyone else. And yeah, I'm a designer over at CMON, and this is my first game that's come out through the company, so I'm super excited. So, and this also happens to be one of my favorite games, based off of one of my very favorite games. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. Can you tell us other projects you've worked on? I'm not sure if people have met you on. I don't think you've been in the live stream. Oh, I think we were together in Simon Expo a few years ago. But if you can talk about your past projects, perhaps.
So I've been doing this for about 13 years. I started off, I was one of the co-owners of a little company called Action Phase Games, and we made a game called Heroes Wanted first. We went on and we made the Kodama games, and probably most notably the Aeon's End games. I then ran Colossal Games and was the lead dev on Western Legends. That's probably the game that I think people might know the most that I've worked on. And I've worked on a bunch of titles. So all the titles that Colossal did, I worked at Indie Boards and Cards. So I've been doing this for quite some time. I've got, a dozen or so personal designs out in the world, but I've worked largely as a studio head and a developer in my career. But this is one of my awesome opportunities where I get to design something. So I'm super excited.
So before we start our deep dive into the game itself, which is launching any moment now, we'll let you know once the pre-orders are live. We'll just introduce you to the game first. But shall we watch the trailer?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So this is Cthulhu Dark Providence. From the theme, a lot of people were speculating how close it is to Death May Die or other Lovecraftian mythos game. And first off, really exciting, can you introduce us to Dark Providence?
Absolutely. So back in 2014, I played a game called A Study in Emerald. And it was from designer Martin Wallace. And it, even though that was quite some time ago and that was earlier in my career, the game really stood out to me as just being really nothing like it. And this is based off of that game. This is inspired from the design of that game here later. So with Martin, this is an opportunity to take that. It's been out of print for a very long time. There were 2 editions of the game. The initial edition that Martin did, and then there was like a second edition that was kind of like a more what's the word I'm looking for? It was a more like they had made some changes to the design to try to make it more accessible in the second edition. And this is a brand new game that uses that system that is, instead of set in the world of A Study in Emerald, it's set in the Cthulhu Death May Die verse, if you will. And what is this game? It is one of my very favorite games, definitely top 3 of all time, probably. It's so many things. It's a deck building game where there are no costs on the cards. It is a hidden role kind of faction game where there's only one winner, and you don't know who's on your team. It's a sandbox game that has characters and that tells a story and that's immersive, all with just really, really simple multi-use cards. It's really a really, really fun game and a pretty wild game. And yeah, I'm so excited to finally be able to talk about this and share this and see this. So yeah, that would be my elevator pitch to you.
I see a few comments saying that your mic is like the insanity continues, and now your mic is acting out.
Oh no, can you not hear me at all? Can you hear me
No,
okay?
no, we can hear you, but there's a lot of static. Maybe you can click on the settings, and there's some noise reduction you can check.
Okay, 1 second. Apologies.
It's clearly the Elder Ones, I don't know, devouring our town. Is one of the old ones trying to silence you? Yes, I'm forced to. Okay, unplug the mic. Oh, someone called tech support. Yay. And plug it back in. So while you do that, let me just tackle a question here. Is this related to Cthulhu Death May Die? So they are in the same universe. They are very different games, as Travis will explain shortly, as soon as we reduce the insanity in his mic. But still, Cthulhu Death May Die fans should stick around if that's
can you hear me now?
Too much of a spoiler. Yes, we can hear you.
Is that better?
Yeah, it is a lot better.
I just took my headphones out, so maybe there's something funky going on with my headphones. Thanks for being patient. I don't know who is in charge of the audio in the HP Lovecraft mythos, but they are responsible for the issue. All right. So I take it that no one could understand anything that I said about the game.
No, we could.
Okay.
I could, at least. We could understand it. There was just a lot of static going on as well. Okay, so it's set in the same universe as Death May Die.
But it's a very different game than Death May Die. Where I feel I love Death May Die. Death May Die is very kind of zoomed in about the specific characters in a specific situation going after a specific elder god. This is more of a zoomed out. It's the conspiracy set in like Prohibition era America with a mix of historical characters and a mix of these new fictionalized characters that we have where there is an attempt from occultists who have they're subverting the government and influential places within the time period as a means to try to usher in this kind of era of darkness. So there's the investigators on one side and there's the cultists on the other side. The investigators are trying to stop the cultists from their performing this ritual that will cause the elder gods to finally take over versus the cultists who want to do exactly that. So mechanically, it's very different. You're not like on like a building or running around a specific map. You're in the United States, the east of the Mississippi River. So the stakes are similar but different.
Yeah. And so introduce this to the lore, and how does the gameplay work? But before you start, I just received information from our producer that the pre-order is now live. So I would like to welcome all of you to our pre-order page. If you guys want to check it out while we talk, you can begin asking your questions to the designer himself. We'll be more than happy to tackle them as we go. So this is a game all set to play, right? So how does it play? How does a typical round of Dark Providence look like?
So the players are all going to be agents, agent Monday through Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? They're going to have, it's a deck building game where everyone has the same exact deck. And we're all going to start off in the same exact position where we start with a main agent, say I'm Agent Friday, for example, the agent we can see in front of us. I'm going to have some influence cubes in front of me, and I'm going to have a 10-card deck. And the deck that we have, everyone has the same deck. But once we get playing, where we're going to end up, like in a lot of deck building games, is going to be very different. And most of the cards in this game are unique. So you're going to, on your turn, you're going to have 2 actions. And you're going to play cards from your hand to either do the text box on the cards, or you're going to choose a symbol on the corner of the cards. And you can choose one symbol, and there's a ton of different actions that you can take with those symbols. After you take your 2 actions, your turn is over and you rinse and repeat. You're going to be building your deck. You're going to be hiring, recruiting new agents. You're going to be gaining these powerful mythos cards. You might, enlist the help of an elder god, for example. And the main thing about this game that makes it, I think, really cool, other than this idea of deck building without costs, the players are going to be putting cubes on cards, and then when their turn rolls around, one of the actions they can take is they can claim cards. So if they have the most influence on a card, then they can gain that card. Interestingly, as you have your agents, you're kind of moving them around, and they also count as influence. So you can kind of like block people, and you can use your characters to do things on the map, but also as a way to influence things. And interfere with other people being able to gain cards. But the primary driver, I think, in the game is this alignment system, where you are dealt a card. Everyone's dealt a card at the beginning of the game, depending on the player count, and that's going to determine which side exactly. This slide right here, what side you're in. And in Dark Providence, it introduces a new alignment that didn't exist in the other Study in Emerald games, which is the dissident. So you're either going to be an investigator, occultist, or you're going to be a dissident. And a dissident is essentially a former member of one of those two groups that still has kind of some ties or leans a little bit in that direction. And whatever you're dealt at the beginning of the game is going to inform how you are going to score points throughout the game, right? Also, you don't know who else might be on your side. So the investigators are going to want to seal the gates in the 12 cities. They're going to want to close those so that they can stop pulling things through, right? For the cultists pulling things through. They're going to want to enlist the help of other notable characters that are worth points only for them. And they're also going to be pursuing some different types of cards and things like that help them score points. Each of the factions has like a track, right? The cultists have lots of ways to score points. They kill people. They kill other agents. They don't care they'll kill their own allies' agents, right? They score points for getting kind of like monsters and elder gods. There's a couple specific cards that are pretty wild that completely change the game if they come out, that they can score points from it, and they get points for protecting the gate. The dissidents get to kind of play both sides. So when you're a dissident, it's really fun because it's really hard to tell what the dissident's doing. You can kind of masquerade because they score points for doing things that both of the factions do, but not all of the things that the factions can do within it. And the main thing is, so if you see dissident investigator or dissident cultist, that means they're going to score that track. So at the end of the game, whichever the ritual or the investigation track, whichever one of those ones they lean toward, they're going to want to help because those are like shared points. The kind of cool big wrinkle in the way the scoring works is at the end of the game, whichever player has the lowest score, anyone that shares the same alignment with them is also eliminated. So if you were winning, Elena, and you had the most points, but we were both investigators and I had the least points, you would be eliminated from scoring because we're supposed to try to figure out who our allies are and work kind of together. So it's weird. It's almost like we're a team, but only in so much that you're a liability, right? So you want to keep your agenda hidden until you can kind of start in the later game. You start to figure out who's on your side, and then you might have to help pull somebody up so that they're not going to make sure that you lose the game also. And the dissidents are just out for themselves. But that's kind of like the main driver of the game. You just have two actions. You're playing cards to do stuff, and you're trying to score points based off of your loyalty, your alignment.
Oh, really cool. I like the semi-cooperative elements, even though this is a competitive game. From what I understand, I see a question here that I think is cool to address. Will there be any gameplay videos of this? So you just played a gameplay video, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, with Good Time, Becca Scott and Good Times Society. So we just filmed a 4-player game. I'm actually going to film another gameplay video today. I'm out here in LA, and that will be posting sometime soon. Next week, there will be on the Dice Towers Winter Spectacular, I'll be playing live with Tom Vassell and some other people. And Board Game Co. Alex Ratcliffe is also going to be covering the game, and we have some more surprises toward later in the pre-order campaign that will have some videos that show things like solo mode.
Yeah, so you just give a. I don't think it counts as a spoiler. The pre-order page is live and it mentions the solo mode, so there is a solo mode. We will cover it. Don't worry.
Yes.
I saw another question that I thought it's a very quick answer, but rule book maybe. Yes, there is a rule book, like a work in progress rule book available at the pre-order page. We recommend you check it out. But also the gameplay video is really helpful in understanding the dynamic of the game. So moving on, the game board. So we see two pieces here. What do each of them do?
So the larger board is a map of the United States, the eastern portion of the United States. So it's a little kind of hard to see, but there, we have Chicago and Detroit. These are all cities that were very vital to that part of the country at that time. And it's cities like, for example, Detroit and Pittsburgh, which were like industrial, very important industrial cities in the United States that now are considered maybe smaller cities in the United States. And this is where the agents are going to be moving around, and each city is worth victory points. Each city has a gate in it that is also worth victory points that the agents can interact with. And those little gold bars in between are the costs to travel in between from city to city. On the right, we have the track board. And the track board is going to keep track of our victory points. It's also going to have this pink and this green track. As a pink track is the investigation track, and the green track is the ritual track. And those tracks are the one thing that the players share. So if we were both investigators, Elena, then we would be sharing the points off of the pink track. So it's interesting because that's a way where you can help out the player who might be in last. Is you could pull them up by doing the track, share the victory points. But if you're competing with that player, if they're your competition, then those points will be a wash for who's the same in the same faction as you, right? Because you'll score the same amount of points, so you can't count on those to help you win the game. So there's this interesting tension between it being something that you can use to help someone and also it not being helpful if you're in a specific situation. And there's also a little area down in the bottom where when players claim cards, their cubes go to this area called limbo that they have to kind of retrieve their influence from to put them back out to be able to use their cubes to continue to acquire things.
Sorry, I see another question here. How long will I be able to pre-order? I already gave you all my money this month for Deceased. So as was the case with other pre-orders, other recent pre-orders, we don't have an exact end date, but we expect to have this open anywhere from 2 to 6 months, and we will let you know an exact date when we are about 1 week from closing. So I would not recommend waiting too long, but you do have some time. So moving on, let's continue with the gameplay. Our playable characters, Agent Monday through Friday.
That's right. And these are characters that are, I believe one of the features of this pre-order is that these agents are going to be playable characters in Death May Die, and that's kind of the crossover. But in this game, you are effectively a character who is working for one of these factions within the context of the game. And as I mentioned, each of the agents has a symmetrical deck. You can see here we've got some influence cubes, right?
And you can see there an example of.
Yeah, so here's some cards from Agent Monday. The blue icon there is power, which is used for assassinating other agents and interacting with gates. The influence cube is how you interact with to gain new cards. And there's another resource that's not visible here, but it's like a little gold bar, which is wealth, which is a way that you can buy more influence cubes to increase your supply, and also how you travel around the board.
Okay. Anything else for the starting deck? Should we move on?
Yeah, well, so you see here, there's a couple of the cards actually. So most of 8 of the cards just have icons, but the 2 of the cards have special actions on them. So the one in the foreground here is you can place and remove a lock token. That's a way that you can put a lock token out, which means cards can't be claimed. What's interesting is in the early game, people will use that to kind of mess with other players and make it so they can't get things that they want. But in the later game, you can use the locks to put on cities that you control to protect them, because then a player has to remove the lock in order to be able to try to claim the city away from you. And then the other card there with text on it is how it's the only card in the starter deck that allows players to assassinate or seal a gate. So that's like a special card that you kind of will work at. Once you kind of get going, you'll start to be able to use that card to do some kind of interesting things going.
So you'll go around cities, right? And we can see a few of them here.
Yeah, so on the board, when you take control of a city, there's almost like an area control style element to the game. So you can actually take control of the city, and each of the cards, each of the cities has a corresponding card. One of the differences in this and than from study is that the city cards were kind of like intentionally designed to be weaker. So because you score victory points right away when you get a city, when you have control of a city. So the cards were almost like a liability. They go in your deck and they were kind of useful. We made it where the city cards are actually quite powerful. So like, for example, here, Detroit is the only card in the game that has 3 wealth icons on it. So it's very good for traveling, or there's like some other cards in the game where you can convert wealth into other resources. New York City is worth a lot of points. It's worth 6 victory points. So it has these little icons that allow you to influence the tracks, but kind of to a weaker degree. Chicago is also worth a lot of points. It has power, really good, but power is kind of harder to use because you need to have a card that enables you to assassinate or enables you to interact with a gate. So you could end up in a situation where if that hand doesn't cobble together right away, the power of that card won't be immediately useful, but it will be over the course of the game. So yeah, the city control is a very important part of the game. And one of the ways that you can trigger the end of the game is if a player hits a threshold of victory points. If a player hits a threshold of victory points for that player count, it'll trigger the end of the game.
A few questions here.
Okay.
Secret role games usually don't play well at 2 players. I heard that in this version it was improved. Can you talk about the 2-player gameplay?
Absolutely. So I would say the 2 biggest differences from a study in Emerald is we steered into the skid on the kind of the wildness of the game, the cards that were really kind of big impact cards. And we have even more of those. So in the original game, the Mythos cards were only 12. There's 24 in this version of the game, all brand new designs. Many of the cards, like I said, the power level in the city was increased. And many of the cards that were kind of like duplicates, we tried to have as many unique cards as we could. The agents are also a lot more powerful and unique than what they were. The other issue was that, as Ryan has said here, the game didn't work great at 2 and 3 players, because what would end up happening is if you had a 3-player game and 2 people were on one of the factions, that means that there was a higher chance that one of them would have a lower score and automatically eliminate the other player, right? So we introduced the dissident role, which allows a player to not be in that situation. It lowers the odds that a player is going to end up being on the same team as another player, and then they are automatically going to be knocked out. We also have some rules for 2-player that make it so that also the secret role portion of the game, the integrity of that is maintained. So I would say that and the solo mode for gameplay wise are the 2 biggest changes and in my opinion improvements to Dark Providence.
Another question here. Assassinating other agents. Does the game have player elimination?
It does. If a player's main agent is assassinated, that is one of the ways that the game end can trigger. It is kind of hard to assassinate another player. And all that means is in investigators, if they get assassinated, the game will end, because what happens is if you get assassinated, if your main agent gets assassinated, you flip your alignment card over, and then if you're an investigator or a dissident, you're dead, but that you can still win the game. But you score points from having your alignment card concealed at the end of the game. So you'll just miss out on 3 points and it'll cause the game to trigger. If you're a cultist, because you're messing with dark infernal forces, you have immortality. So you would reveal your identity and the game would continue. So this game is really interesting that if you drive yourself insane or if you are killed, that doesn't mean that you can't win the game. It can trigger the end of the game, but you're not eliminated, no.
Okay. So earlier on, you mentioned what was the word you used? The wackiness, the wacky cards.
Yeah, there's some cards in the game that are just crazy. I mean, like the Cthulhu card. Cthulhu we'll talk about these cards first. Revenants is a great example. So The reason this game originally had tokens, and if you were paying attention earlier, you'll notice that the little agent tokens are sitting on like it's called a frame, which is almost like a little altar. The reason why that exists is because of this one card revenants, because each of the tokens can be flipped over where you're playing kind of like a possessed version of an evil possessed version of your agent, which can't be killed. And the cultists will score points at the end of the game for each revenant that they control. So that one card informs an entire set of components. There's 6 of those little frames, right? And this was based off of a card originally that was called Vampire that was in a study in Emerald. We made some slight changes, and we tried to have more scoring opportunities for players in Dark Providence. But there's a lot of just really crazy cards. Like Saboteur, for example, over here is a brand new card. And Saboteur, when you claim it, you take 2 cubes off of any card that's out in play, and you just put them into limbo, right? And then you give the Saboteur to another player. And how this game works as a deck building game is you don't just discard all the cards that you drew at the end of your turn. Any cards that you didn't use stay in your hand. So the Saboteur eventually is going to find his way into your hand and gum up your hand, right? So it's like playing with one less card. There is an action, and there are cards that let you discard. There's an action that you can take that's just discard any number of cards, and at the end of your turn, you'll draw back up. So this is a subtle way to kind of impact the players. If you look at corruption there was not a card like this before. This lets you just take control of someone's agent. You can just be like, I'm going to corrupt him and he's going to come to my side. You have to have your main agent in the same city, or you can just take control of a city. You can corrupt a city. And then we have some cards like Miskatonic University, which was a card that was in the original game. Necronomicon was a card that was in the original game, or Study in Emerald. And we have other cards like Otherworldly Gate, which allow you to seal or protect gates, and you don't do a sanity test, because one of the risks is your agents do sanity tests when they interact with the gates, and your main agent is immune to death from that, but your other agents that perform those actions can actually die, can be obliterated as a result of doing those actions. So this was a little workaround for that. So the cards are all like extremely powerful. Every time you see a card, you're like, holy crap, I can't believe how powerful this is. And at the start of the game, you have 12 face-up cards in the 12 cities. You have the 12 cities that you could win. So that's 24 cards. And then based off of the player count, you'll have 3 or 4 Mythos cards off to the side. So you've got a ton of options for starting plays, for options, how you want to sculpt your strategy. As soon as one card is taken, a new card comes out. It really like makes the game feel unique and diverse because there's so many cards, so many unique cards.
So these are the cards you'll be taking to build your deck throughout
Right.
the game.
Yeah, asset cards they're called. Yes, exactly. These are going to go into your deck and they're going to inform your strategy.
Yeah. I see a question here. The box art features someone looking like Nikola Tesla. Will there be other famous people? Which will lead us to our next slide.
There are tons of famous people, actually. So here you can see there's Wyatt Earp. So in Study in Emerald, we had Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty. So Wyatt Earp takes the place of the powerful good guy card in Dark Providence. Wyatt Earp was 80 years old during the Depression era. And so we thought it would be really, really cool to include Wyatt Earp in the game as the tough old man that the investigators can enlist. You also see we have Harry Houdini. Harry Houdini cannot be killed. That's his power. He is an agent that cannot be assassinated.
An escape artist.
Right. Stephanie St. Clair was a famous kind of mobster in Harlem during the time. Very powerful card too. You see she has 2 wealth, 2 influence, and she has the ability, that little skull, she can perform the assassinate action. James Horace Rose is a made up character that we created for this, and he's kind of his ability is he can protect gates, which is very in Study in Emerald, there wasn't a lot of opportunities to do that. There was literally a card called Protect Gate. In this, there's far more opportunities for the cultists to protect the gates so that the investigators just don't seal them all so they can score points. And then Eunice Hunt here is based off of a woman who was the first, I believe she was the first African-American Supreme Court justice, if I'm not mistaken. And her power is she's worth 2 points. If her token is out at the end of the game and is controlled by an investigator, that's 2 victory points, and 2 victory points is a lot in this game. So all of the characters, we have a nice mix of characters, and we'll see some more notable characters. But Elliot Ness, yes, Lillian LaFrance, who is a female stunt artist, motorcycle stunt artist, Wyatt Earp. I can't even recall all of them. We have tons and tons. Then we have, analogs to people like Jackie Robinson and things like that, just because we wanted to pay homage to a lot of the very famous types of people. Arnold Rothstein is in the game from Boardwalk Empire. So there's lots of historical characters.
There are a few more to show in the next one, and this is quite a mix. Like here we see people, and here we see people and monsters. Like you said, I just mentioned that you get to see Cthulhu, and right next to him,
famous psychologist Carl Jung. Yeah, that Carl Jung is, so Carl Jung, there was a card in the original in Study in Emerald that had a similar function, but we made it Carl Jung, and we kind of changed the design a little bit. Nikola Tesla, insanely powerful. He lets you have an extra action, but as you can see, that little icon to the right of his name is a sanity test because he was a madman. So when you gain those, and these are mythos cards, these are tarot size cards that don't go into your deck. And so you'll gain them, and they'll give you sort of ongoing powers. Some of them will give you a power when you take them. As you can see, Cthulhu here, he does a sanity test. He's worth 2 points for cultists, only cultists. And he literally, Cthulhu, when you play him, you put him in a city. He eats all the cards in the city, which will immediately push up the cultist track, because whenever a city, all the cards have been taken from a city, a new mythos card, one of these cards, gets added, and the cultist track increases. So they have there's a natural timer in there. He eats all of the non-main agents. He just eats them. They're gone forever. They die. Any of the main agents are forced to flee. If someone controlled that city, they lose control of the city. And that city is effectively gone. Cthulhu has devoured the city and is now just taking up space in that American city, and it is no longer available to be interacted with in the game. So he's like this massively impactful card. When we played yesterday, Cthulhu was out, and players were just bidding just to stop the guy who wanted Cthulhu from playing Cthulhu. And then when it got played, of course, it was played on me, and he ate two of my guys. I was pretty annoyed by that. So we have other gods that you can see in Death May Die. You see here Nyarlathotep, who messes with locks. We have Randolph Carter, which is H.P. Lovecraft's kind of alter ego that he put in some of his stories. Herbert West, the Reanimator, is in here, and so Cthulhu and Carl Jung there were versions of those cards in A Study in Emerald, but all these other cards are brand new. And as I said, we doubled the amount of these cards. So I didn't realize that I'm putting my hand here, I'm trying to point at my own screen, and you guys can't see that I'm pointing at my screen. So we double the amount of these cards. So that adds a tremendous amount of variety. I mean, J. Edgar Hoover is one of these cards. William Randolph Hearst is one of the cards for you people who are familiar with history of that era. We've got a lot more things like the Migo. Yeah, Migo is in here. Migo is like a little special agent that you can put out, and he's sending people's brains to Pluto. So whenever he's in a space with other agents, you can't use those agents' abilities. They're effectively brain wiped. So lots and lots of variety.
Another question here. Are there going to be expansions for this game, like adding more historical characters, for example, or another location? Now, this is a question that always shows up. What do you say, Travis?
What I say is, if you want to see an expansion for this game, buy it and help make it successful so that can happen. But right now, we are very focused on the launch of this. This has taken a lot of work. This is a tremendous amount of effort from our very talented team to get this to make this day happen right now, that we finally arrived at, that we can share more information about the game and that it's available for pre-order. So that would be my advice. If you want more of that stuff, help this game succeed so that we can pave the way. Remember, we only have that map of the eastern United States. We did that very intentionally So there's room for more to be had potentially in the future.
Well, one thing that I was surprised to learn, so I think people are going to be surprised too, is that this game does have a solo mode, which
Yes,
is very uncommon for secret role games.
it is.
Can you
Uh,
introduce us to it?
well, this was designed by the very talented Chris Ham. Chris is one of our developers here at CMON, and I've had the pleasure of working with him at Colossal Games and at CMON. And Chris, my favorite thing about Chris is that Chris does not play solo modes, but is very good at designing them because he's extremely competitive and smart. So who better to beat than himself at a game, right? So, so he, when we were talking to Martin about, updating some things with the player counts, like trying to make the 2 and the 3 player count more uh, like the have improve the 2 and the 3 player count. It was said, can a solo mode be made? And Chris said, impossible. There's it's not possible. And then about a week later, he's like, I figured it out. And so it is a different game. You play as an investigator, so there is the hidden loyalty element of the game is not there, but you play as an investigator who's essentially fighting against these 2 cultists. The cultists there is a big bad, an elder god that's in the game that is going to inform what the goal is for the cultists to be doing. The cultists are going to be moving around the map, behaving a lot like other players. They're going to be taking away cards. They're going to be trying to kill agents. They're going to be trying to take control of cities. So it is automated, but the way that the cultists behave is really like challenging, and it allows the players to utilize the game and play a different version of the game in the solo mode, but still uses tons of the really cool, the multi-use cards, the card acquisition and deck building element of the game, the area control element of the game. You just don't have that hidden loyalty aspect.
Very cool. Okay, and finally, I think we're getting to the end here, but finally, by pre-ordering this game, you will get not only a $10 discount from expected retail price a year from now, but also exclusive investigators to
Those are
play
those are
as.
Monday through Friday.
Yes, the same the characters that are playable in Dark Providence turned into investigators for Death May Die and these very cool minis. Now, I did see a question earlier on that I cannot find right now, but saying, can we get minis for this game? And like, Dark Providence unfortunately does not work with minis. Believe me, if it could have miniatures, we absolutely would have made them.
That's right.
Because of the little trick Travis mentioned earlier on where it flips.
Well, that and the age. So one thing that's really neat in the game is that when you get the card, you also, for an agent, you also get the token. And the token can have information on it that makes it valuable just being out on the map. And then the card is valuable for a different reason. And so there's stats like power, victory points, reminders for what they can do if they're good at assassinating or interacting with gates. So none of those things would be easy to track on a miniature, as well as you mentioned, the Revenant card that allows you to flip. So there were talks early on and if we could integrate miniatures into this, and it's just really not, it's not reasonable for what the type of game this is. But we do get these, we get to see the characters, the agents, make an appearance over in Death May Die. And from what you were telling me, there's some pretty cool stuff going on with the investigators. Yeah.
Yes, these are very different investigators. The design team for these really tried to go the extra mile to make them very different from what you've seen in the game previously. So while I can't go into detail about all of them, I know that Agent Friday, he does have, and Friday and Wednesday, they have specific tokens that are specific to them. And Friday can give like extra actions to other investigators, and Wednesday has a magic that negates the effect of a Mythos card, if I'm not mistaken. So very different from other effects you've had in the game. So unfortunately, Dark Providence does not allow for minis. We love minis, but not to the point where we'll just throw them in the game if they have no reason to be there. But what does allow for cool minis is Death May Die. So these are the pre-order exclusives. Investigators for Cthulhu Death May Die you will get along with your pre-order, along with your $10 discount. So if you're interested in everything Travis said, and this is a very cool combo that personally I don't think I've seen before, secret role plus deck building plus a board and a lot of stuff, head over to the pre-order page and get the game along with your investigators. I think we covered everything, right, Travis? Do you have any final words before we wrap this up? Let's see if any other final questions appear as well. But anything else you'd like to cover?
I mean, like, so, you know, like I mentioned, I've been working in games for quite some time, and I love every game that I work on. But it was really an honor to say, I want to work on this game for CMON, for us to be able to take that on and to get to work on one of my own favorite games, and to do a new game based off of that design was really, really awesome. Like, this is, in my career, this is a very special moment and a very special project. And Martin is just incredible. Martin Wallace is an incredibly talented, smart, and generous guy. And I'm so lucky that I got to work on this. It really was a privilege. And I really am excited for everyone to finally get to play this. And I really hope you can check out the videos that we're doing for this. It'll give you a lot of insight in how the game works, and the variety and all the crazy stuff that can happen. It's a really special, special game.
Well, just before we wrap up, I just pre-ordered. Can you read this so that I appear 3 times in the video? We got you. Thank you so much for sticking around.
Thank you.
And thank you all for watching us. And head over to the pre-order page. Now you have full knowledge about the game. And I guess we'll see you later, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.